The wind howled down from the peaks before the snow even started falling. It crept in quietly at first, the way trouble often does, a distant sigh through the tall firs lining the ridge above the old A-frame cabin. You could almost tell yourself it was just the trees talking. Then it built, grew teeth, and by 8 o'clock that Thursday night in late January, it was slamming against the cabin's storm shutters like someone desperate to be let inside. Jacob Reed stood at the living room window, palm pressed to the icy pane, watching the world vanish. The tree line was gone. The cord of seasoned Douglas fir he'd split and stacked neatly against the east wall 3 weeks earlier, gone. Nothing remained but swirling white, thick and relentless, swallowing everything except the weak golden glow of the porch light fighting a losing battle. The weather app had promised 4 to 6 inches. The drifts already piled against the north side were thigh-high on him. He turned away. Behind him, the wood stove hissed and popped with the last of the evening's logs. He'd fed it more than planned. The cold seeped through the cabin's log walls like it had a personal grudge, slipping into every crack, every poorly caulked seam, every spot where 40-odd Montana winters had worn the insulation thin. The indoor thermometer read 51 degrees Fahrenheit and falling. More wood, he'd been delaying it. "Daddy?" Ava's voice floated from the hallway. 6 years old, she stood in the doorway wrapped in the fuzzy purple blanket she dragged off her twin bed. Her dark curls were sleep musk. In one hand, she clutched her worn stuffed fox, Finley, missing one glass eye, fur matted in places, yet loved with the fierce, uncomplicated devotion only a child can give. "Hey, Peanut," Jacob said softly. "Why aren't you asleep? It's noisy out there." She pointed upward toward the howling roof. "I know. I'm gonna fix the coal part. Back to bed, okay? Take Finley with you." She didn't budge. She studied him with that grave 6-year-old stare. The one that says, "I know something's wrong and I'm deciding whether to call you on it." "Is the power coming back soon?" "The generator's keeping the lights on for tonight. We're okay." Not entirely accurate. The generator ran the few bulbs in the fridge, but the wood stove was their real heat, and it demanded fuel that was currently buried under a growing blizzard. "Okay," Ava said after a moment, accepting the half-truth the way children sometimes do when they sense pushing won't help. She shuffled back toward her room, blanket trailing like a cape. At the doorway, she paused. "Finley says he doesn't like the storm." "Tell Finley Storm don't care what anyone thinks," Jacob replied. "That's just how they are." She frowned. "That's kinda mean." "I know. Now sleep." He pulled on his heavy Carhartt coat, insulated boots, wool gloves, and a balaclava. The back door fought him, wind shoving back. He stepped into the white roar. Snow stung his face like needles. He moved fast, grabbing armloads of wood, muscles burning from the cold that drilled straight to the bone. Montana high country cold wasn't pretty or cinematic. It was efficient, methodical, shutting systems down one by one. 6 trips. Each one stole a little more warmth from his core. By the last load, his beard was crusted with ice. He latched the door, stamped snow off his boots, and stood panting in the kitchen. He fed the stove 3 big splits, adjusted the damper, watched flames catch. The main room crept upward. 47 degrees, 49 degrees. He brewed chamomile tea he didn't want, cupped the mug for warmth, and sat at the scarred pine table with the emergency radio turned low. National Weather Service, 14 to 20 inches possible by dawn. All passes and county roads closed. No travel advised. Isolation. He knew that feeling well. 3 winters ago, his wife Emily had died on black ice outside Bozeman. Wrong place, wrong moment. After the funeral, Jacob had started coming to the family cabin more often. Weekends at first, then full months. Eventually, Denver became someone else's life. The cabin became theirs. The wind rattled the front door in its frame. Jacob sipped tea and listened to the storm do whatever it pleased. He wasn't afraid, not exactly. 2 tours in the Marines, starting and selling 2 small construction companies, burying his wife at 35, raising Ava alone. He'd learned to box fear away. What sat with him now was quieter, a bone-deep awareness of aloneness. He was turning that thought over when something struck the front door. Not wind, not a branch. Something deliberate, heavy. He set the mug down. Another knock, unmistakable this time. No one drove this Forest Service road in a whiteout. No one lived within 5 miles. No one even knew he was here this week. He hadn't told a soul. Old habit, bad one. He crossed the room, slid the bolt, pulled the door open against the wind. Cold rushed in, then her. She stood swaying on the porch boards, one hand gripping the frame, the other arm clamped tight around her ribs as if she could physically hold her body heat inside. Her navy parka was soaked through, jeans dark to mid-thigh with wet snow. Her face was the color of ash, lips an unnatural slate blue. She shook so violently, her teeth chattered audibly. Jacob's first instinct, assess threat. Second, hypothermia advancing fast. Third, slamming into him like a fist, was recognition. Grace, he said. Her eyes, hazy, slow, found his. Grace Marshall, 31, his late stepfather's daughter from a previous marriage. Stepsister in the legal sense. Family in the complicated, half-broken way that only exists until it doesn't. 4 years since he'd last seen her. 4 years since raised voices in the living room of their mother's old house in Helena, a slammed door, and the kind of silence that hardens into concrete. Jacob, she managed. The word came out thick, slurred. He didn't think. He moved, out onto the porch, arm around her waist before her legs gave completely, pulling her inside. She was lighter than memory said she should be. He half carried her to the couch facing the stove. She folded onto the cushions like liquid finding its level. Up close, she looked even worse. Fingertips white, eyelashes rimed with ice, shaking, coming from deep inside. Core cold. Teon. How long out there? His voice stayed calm, procedural. Cart. Went off. Maybe 3 miles back. Walked. She swallowed hard. Rental. Name? She blinked slowly. You know my name. Grace. Marshall. A pause. Used to be Reynolds. I don't know anymore. Mild to moderate hypothermia. Talking, oriented, but sliding. He stripped the soaked parka, boots, socks. She winced when he touched her feet. Good sign, nerves still alive. He grabbed the emergency wool blankets from the storage chest, layered them over her, tugged a knit cap down over her wet hair. Ran warm, not hot. Tap water. Pressed the mug into her shaking hands. Drink. She sipped. He checked color, sensation, shivering intensity. Not thinking about 4 years of unanswered texts, unsent apologies. The fight that had ended with both of them bleeding words they couldn't take back. Thinking only core temp, insulation, rewarming rate. Ava appeared in the hallway again, wide-eyed, blanket clutched. Who's that? She whispered. Someone who needs help, sweetheart. Back to bed. Is she okay? She's cold. I'm warming her up. Ava stared a moment longer, then softly. Does she want Finley? Grace's gaze shifted to the little girl. Something flickered across her face. Surprise. Maybe relief. The look of someone braced for impact who suddenly felt a hand steady them instead. I'm okay, Grace said, voice already a shade clearer. Thank you, sweetie. Ava nodded solemnly and retreated. The stove crackled. Outside, the wind pressed harder. Jacob sat in the armchair opposite and watched the shivering slowly ease. He didn't ask why she was here. Didn't ask about the fight, the silence, the years. He watched her breathe. The room climbed to 57 degrees. Grace's lips lost their blue tinge. Fingertips pinked up. She wiggled toes on command. Pins and needles, she said. Normal rewarming pain. You know your stuff, she murmured. Been cold before. She gave the ghost of a smile. By midnight, the generator quit. Just firelight now. The stove struggled against fresh northwest gusts, finding new gaps. Temperature stalled, then dipped. Grace had stopped shivering. Dangerous sign. She no longer answered when he spoke her name. He weighed options. Wilderness first aid training surfaced. Skin to skin if nothing else available. Medical necessity, nothing more. He moved the couch closer to the stove, sat beside her, pulled blankets over both of them. Arm against arm through wool, his warmth slowly crossed the gap. It wasn't dramatic, just gradual degrees. She stayed cold, then less cold, then simply human beside him. Ava patted out around 2 a.m., looked at them, climbed up on Grace's other side with Finley. It's warmer here, she announced quietly. Go back to sleep, Peanut. She did. Jacob sat between daughter and stepsister, tending the fire, listening to the storm rage, feeling the slow arithmetic of body heat. He didn't sleep. Around 3:30, Grace stirred, eyes opening in the dim orange glow. She looked at the flames, at Ava curled against her, at Jacob. She said nothing for a long minute, then, barely audible over the wind, "I didn't have anywhere else to go." He let the words settle. "Okay," he said. She exhaled. "I know it's complicated. I know I can't just—" "You're here," he cut in. "You're warm. That's what's true tonight." She looked at him. Really looked. "I lost my apartment last spring. Job in Seattle went away in September. I thought I could hang on. Couch surfed, gig work. Told myself next month would turn it around." A long pause. "It didn't. I've been living in the car since late fall, just driving." He listened. "Ava's named after Emily's mom, right?" she asked suddenly. "Yeah, Emily wanted to carry it forward. I remember you telling me that at the wedding. You were so careful with it, like the name had to be held the right way." Silence stretched, softer now. "I've thought about calling," Grace said. 1,000 times. Didn't know where to start. Didn't know if you'd even pick up. I found your mom's old address book. Called Mrs. Larson down the road. She said you were probably up here." She swallowed. "I drove. Kept thinking you'd turn me away. That it'd be fair. I was just so tired." Ava shifted in sleep, small hand finding Grace's arm under the blanket. Grace's brow smoothed. "You're not going anywhere tonight," Jacob said. "Not because of the snow, just you're not." She didn't argue. She turned back to the fire. Something in her posture eased. One long-held breath released. Morning came hard and bright. The storm broke it at 7:50 a.m. Wind died, clouds tore open. Sunlight hit fresh powder like diamonds. Ava pressed her nose to the window. "It's so beautiful, like the mountains got a new quilt." Grace from the couch. A big cozy blanket. Ava grinned. "Like when we tuck Finley in." They ate scrambled eggs and camp stove coffee at the little table. Ava narrated Finley's entire biography. Lost eye in the laundry disaster. Heroic resewing by Daddy. Heroic reloss 2 weeks later. Grace listened gravely, asked serious questions, treated the Fox's saga with respect. Afterward, Jacob said, "Tell me about the car." Missed a curve 3 miles down the forest road. Front end in the ditch. Couldn't back out. Snow kept coming. Waited a while, then walked. Kept telling myself not to stop. Read once that hypothermia messes with your thinking before you notice. You did the right thing. When I saw the porch light, I wasn't sure it was real." He didn't reply. Some moments don't need commentary. The next days were quiet. Roads stayed closed. Tow truck hauled the rental out Saturday. They shoveled paths, uncovered wood, cleared the deck. Ava helped with her tiny shovel, flinging snow in enthusiastic arcs. Evenings they sat by the fire, talked about the lost years, the fight in Helena over their stepfather's messy estate, the cruel things said when grief made language into knives. "I shouldn't have said Emily kept you from being family," Grace admitted one night. "That was wrong, cruel." "I said worse," Jacob replied. "Told you you were running from responsibility, using grief as an excuse. I was wrong too." They didn't tie it up neatly. Repair isn't tidy. It's halting, repeated, sometimes circling back to the same hurt from a new angle. But each conversation left the air a little lighter. One evening, Ava asked point blank over mac and cheese, "Are you staying with us?" Grace glanced at Jacob. He stayed neutral. It wasn't his answer to give. "I don't know yet," she said. "I need to sort some grown-up stuff." "Grown-up stuff takes forever," Ava observed. "It does." "Finley thinks you should stay," Ava added. "He told me." "Finley's biased," Grace said. "He likes anyone who scratches his ears, even imaginary ones." Ava giggled, bright, free. The sound moved something in the room. Saturday, the tow lot called, car drivable, parked at the base. Jacob drove down with Grace following in his truck. They ate lunch at the little roadside cafe in Whitefish, pancakes for Ava, who declared them officially the best ever. On the drive back, Grace said quietly, "I looked up remote jobs, marketing ops, freelance copy. If I'm going to stay, even short term, I want to contribute, not just exist." "Sounds like you," Jacob said. "What?" "You always think better when you're doing something. Remember finals, TV blaring, music on, books everywhere, and you'd ace them." She was quiet. "You remember that?" "I remember a lot." Another stretch of companionable silence. "I'm not asking for forever," she said. "This is your home, yours and Ava's." "I know. I just need a stable place to land, For a while, haven't had that in years. He kept his eyes on the snowy road. There's the loft room, used for storage now. Camp bed's decent. I slept on it plenty. I'll clear the boxes. Jacob! I'm sure. She studied him. Really sure, not just reflex? He thought about the week, shoveling side by side, Ava's laughter, Grace's careful thawing, not just body temperature, but something deeper. Thought about 4 years of silence that had felt safer than speaking. Thought about a 6-year-old who offered her fox to a shivering stranger because kindness was simple. Yes, he said, I'm sure. They drove home in easy quiet. Ava met them at the door. Did you bring treats? Grace smiled. He brought us. Ava considered. Not muffins, but okay. She ran inside, door wide. Grace paused on the porch, looking at snow-laden pines. The sturdy cabin, the open door. Then she stepped inside. Jacob lingered outside a moment. The air was crisp, scoured clean by the storm. Everything unnecessary had been blown away, leaving only what mattered. Through the door, he heard Ava explaining Finley's nap routine. Very serious, very detailed. He heard Grace listening, responding. He stood until the cold pressed him to honesty, then went inside and closed the door. Life doesn't always hand you clean answers or perfect timing. Sometimes what saves you is a door opening at the exact moment it's needed, and someone on the other side choosing, against every reason and every scar, to leave it open. That's not a fix, it's a beginning. And sometimes that's enough. The real value in life isn't avoiding storms. It's learning who you'll share the fire with when they hit. It's remembering that reaching out, whether giving help or accepting it, takes more courage than standing alone. It's understanding that family isn't always born. Sometimes it's rebuilt. One quiet night, one honest conversation, one shared blanket at a time. If this story touched you, reminded you of second chances or the warmth of connection, please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit that like button, drop a comment about someone who's been a porch light in your life, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Your support keeps these stories coming. Thanks for being here. Stay warm out there.